I'm Katalin, ORBÁN, an Associate Professor of Media Studies at ELTE. My main research area currently is media theory and media history, and the theory and history of comics. I write a lot about graphic novels and graphic reportage. I've had an international teaching career before ELTE, including the US and South Asia. My topic today is the selfie as a site of cultural contestation. Basically, I'll just raise a few issues around the selfie which motivates why there's such intense debate around the selfie and its value and selfie-making practices. One of the issues that the selfie raises that explains the debates around it is its historicity. If there is some kind of distinctness to our historical moment, if the selfie represents some kind of technological decline or progress, how it presents the questions of why it's so difficult to disconnect from network culture. It also engages a lot of our concerns around privacy, the difference between the private and the public, and current concerns around data security and the surveillance technologies that surround us. In terms of editing and filtering, the selfie also raises questions around the limits of self-fashioning, self-making, identity politics, if there are any limits to changing who we are and maintaining that fabricated self, and if the body, the physical body, is a hard limit to such self-fashioning. And most recently, the selfie also involves a lot of the questions of trust and anxiety around artificial intelligence. Here is illustrations. You can see some recent selfie-related images, including a bear that made at least 400 selfies with wildlife cameras, the most recent 2023 selfie trend of using traffic mirrors and a typical selfie. So the question is, what distinguishes the selfie from a long and illustrious history of the visualized, documented self, from artistic self-portraits through the first selfie-like photography made in Philadelphia by an amateur chemist who had a passion for photography, through all kinds of stage self-portraits like the one you see that is held at a museum in Jaipur, and more recently in the early 20th century, the photo booths that allowed a lot of people to take photographs of themselves who had previously not had studio photography available to them. The selfie as a word emerged in 2002, and it became an official word of the Oxford English Dictionary in 2013, which obviously shows that by that point the selfie became something practiced by a lot of people, partly thanks to the smartphone and the front-facing camera. And by 2014, the only data we have is that Google had a report which said that 93 million selfies were sent every day. And that only includes the ones that were taken with the front-facing camera and sent to someone on Android phones. So we obviously have many more taken. The question what a selfie is still pretty complicated, because we can have selfies that only show people's feet, as you see on the left, and we recognize it as a selfie. At the same time, a lot of pictures people take of themselves or their feet, like the medical selfies taken by diabetics, are not selfies. So it's still a little complicated. And one of the definitions, working definitions of the selfie that identifies it as a current object and practice is self-representation on network photographs, which combine both the object, the picture. Here you can see the first picture taken of Navalny after he survived his attempted assassination and woke up in the Charité hospital in Berlin. you see the subject in the selfie and also the practice. So in this picture too, you can see that people know exactly what pose fits a selfie and how you take a selfie and how you share it. And an important part of the selfie circulation is also the likes, the comments, the resharing, etc. So all of this practice is part of the selfie that was not part of the photo booth, etc. So in this sense, this is something very contemporary and requires network culture in addition to photography and the self to be photographed. Now, there is a lot of anxiety, even media panic surrounding this particular capturing of the self, especially because it is seen as not only captured but also curated, that we're making particular selections and enhancements. And this is why the negative assessment of the selfie and all the very intense criticisms emphasize superficiality, self-indulgence, and all kinds of harm to society and to the selfie taker. So the overuse of the selfie, the real goal of the action is the taking of the selfie rather than the action. So it eclipses actual life, and selfie taking, or dangerous selfie taking, for example, as in this image, becomes the true goal of the action. And also, to the extent that it's a fabricated self, it has to be maintained even despite the fact that the person might live a very different life. And all the comparisons and the burdens arguably cause all kinds of mental problems for people. This kind of negative sense, this panic about the selfie, is at the heart of a famous case called the Holocaust, in which an artist basically shamed and punished people who took selfies at the Berlin Holocaust Memorial by changing their pictures as if they were taking their selfies at the site of atrocities, which is obviously, arguably, not the same thing as taking a selfie, but it emphasizes the idea of superficiality, etc. There are much more positive senses of the selfie, in which it's a part of the natural impression management that we do as selves anyway, and the fact that it's crafted doesn't mean that it's false or inauthentic. Other people think that it's actually a very positive part of the digital literacy, digital vernacular for making the self public, and in that sense, it's like GIFs and memes and videos, and there are many ways we can use them. The other major contestation is around data, and the last one will be about editing. The two are very closely related. So there are all kinds of metadata, and the variability of the image components of the selfie make it easy to edit. So we have all kinds of human source data and machine source data that leave traces and lend themselves to aggregation and analysis. And this can be combined with all kinds of other body and behavior monitoring tools and appliances that we often use voluntarily. Plus, with the use of augmented reality and facial recognition, these data can be then combined with other data we have available. Now, the platforms have very different affordances for these uses. And for example, one of them, Snapchat, which was established in 2011, distinguished itself with a very playful use of AR, essentially funny filters like this one that you can very easily attach to the face of the selfie taker. Moreover, the appearance of the platform emphasized temporary messages, which are almost like part of oral culture, disappearing messages that don't leave public traces. Also made it much less stressful than the main platforms like Instagram, with giving people much more control over sharing. In fact, the actual kind of cold affordances, true under the hood affordances of the platform, also involve data collection. And it's always a big question, who owns this facial data? The platform, the app, the filter maker, the user? Are there any third parties that have access to it? So what happens with this data is that the collection of biometric data is either hidden or normalized. Obviously, it would be possible for these platforms to show us the image of the true data collection, as you see on the right. No wonder they don't do that, because then we might not use the funny filters. Also, the normalization of automated image manipulation has all kinds of cultural consequences. Now, something similar is involved with the editing capabilities. There are all kinds of perfecting apps like Facetune, many others, that can change people's facial structure, hair, makeup. And in terms of human reading, when we look at them, these correspond to beauty standards that are also maybe sometimes problematic and questionable. But for machine reading, these involve the creation and completion of profiles, prediction, manipulation, and through tagging, a change of the quality of public space. So essentially, if we can be tagged in images through our selfies, we can be identified in public space when we're not taking selfies as well. There are actually a lot of new applications or even suites of applications that allow people to do this. One of the famous ones in Chinese social media is called Maitu, which means beautiful picture. It started in 2008, and it's a whole suite of applications that allow ideal and enhanced selfie taking. And the 40 minutes per face that you see next to the pictures is the average time people work on editing selfie before uploading it to Chinese social media. So the overwhelming majority of the revenue of this company is selfie-optimized phones, which allow the automatic enhancement of selfies. So you don't even need to use an app. And there are all kinds of social consequences, including the fact that these beauty grades correspond to ethnic corrections, for example, Euro-American or Euro-Asian filtering. This also leads to the question if creating these images leads to people wanting to look like their enhanced images in real life and changing their bodies to correspond to these beauty ideals. On the right, you can see detail from a study made by plastic surgeons who try to show their patients that traditional photography shows them in a different way from selfies, that therefore they are not exactly like their selfie images. But of course, the starting point for this is that a lot of people approach plastic surgeons in certain countries to create bodies that fit their distorted or enhanced, improved images and selfies. What you see on the left is one of the latest iterations of artificial intelligence used to create portraits of people in particular visual styles, creating their versions in either painters or movie genres, etc., etc. What is interesting here, and that happens in a lot of selfie making apps and platforms, is that the visual style is accompanied by changes in the body. That is, the automated body upgrade also happens without telling people that their bodies are changed when they change the visual style. So this is still kind of an undecided situation, how far the selfie culture will lead to this type of body enhancement, and if it will actually change the way in which the body is a hard limit to self-fashioning. But this is one of the reasons why there is a lot of alarmist discourse around selfie making. Thank you for your attention.